Three, two, one. Hey, everybody. I'm David Bloom with Next TMT and Next TMT Talks. I am here with Matt Smith, Chief Evangelist of AKTA. And today we are talking in this episode about live streaming, cloud DVR, and the low latency crisis. The market problem here is that sometimes people want to watch your stuff. Sometimes a lot of people want to watch your stuff. A lot of people. I think we first saw this, I don't know, 15, 16, a long time ago, when people discovered that Victoria's Secret was going to have a bunch of people not wearing very many clothes walking across the stage online live. And it melted the internet. And it's been happening ever since. Netflix had problems with its live events, its first live events a couple of years ago, and now they're figuring it out. But everybody who's doing live, which is hot, everybody who's doing anything that's going to be closely watched, particularly the live stuff, has to figure out how to live up to the expectations of viewers that they want it now. They want it not buffering. They want to have a good experience. And it's particularly a case, I would guess, in places that are legacy media, where the audience has been trained to expect what broadcast does or what cable does, right? As opposed to what streaming allows, which is reaching lots of people in highly targeted ways. But when everybody piles in, you got a problem. What have you seen in terms of grappling with this, in terms of the challenges it causes throughout the output chain? And where do we go, Matt?
Very good
I-
question. And you mentioned some historical stuff that I was part of, right, at broadcast.com, right? The Victoria's Secret thing. So yeah, you're right. We've been struggling as an industry to keep up with the demand, with the interest, right? I mean, Victoria's Secret was one thing, and then next thing you know, we're doing Super Bowls and World Cups, and which is very timely because this week we are doing the World Cup for one of our biggest customers. So you're absolutely right. Being a butt in a seat in one of those organizations and watching the lights dim and the windows shake and the air conditioner kind of go on the fritz. Right.
we
Um
seem to be having problems,
yeah,
Houston.
you're doing the Sam Jackson, Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it is not, I mean, all joking aside, it's a big deal because let's keep in mind the companies that we're servicing, they've paid a lot of money for these rights, right? And they're expecting to make a lot of money off the advertising revenue. So
And the advertisers expect them to deliver
and
their ads and all the content flawlessly also. It's not
that's
just the
right.
audience, right?
That's
So
right.
it's the paying guys too.
That's right. It's that
So
five nines thing, right? You got to be up, you got to get it done. So, we've had again, I don't want to break my arm to pat the organization on the back, but we've done multiple Super Bowls, we've done multiple World Cups. So we're familiar with scale and we know how to use microservices. We know how to use things at the edge that help mitigate when you've got 1,000,000, 2,000,000, 5,000,000 people that want to consume that stream. There's architecture considerations that you absolutely take into account. You're not going to go back to the origin for all these requests, right? Because you're just going to crash the plane. So we've learned those things and we know how to, you know, being a company that's mostly engineers to build solutions that can scale, right? No matter if it's the local station in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, or if it's VIX and they need to do the World Cup, the same infrastructure is there, right? And it's in place. Now, Hattiesburg, Mississippi, there may be 17,000 people watching the live local news, but if it's
or watching Southern Mississippi University's football game, right? I mean, that's
hey,
probably like 2/3 of the town all at once watching that, right? You better deliver,
that's
right?
right. That's right.
So
Very, very excellent context as always, David. But conversely, if it's Sunday and it's the World Cup here in Dallas and it's and forgive me, I'm I'm a very casual soccer fan, but it's two nations that are playing against each other. You've got a global audience that wants to see that. So to your point, you've got to be able to deliver it. The stream's got to be solid. When the break hits, the ads have to be solid. Everything has to be five nines, up and running, everything's there. We've learned how to do that using technology, right? It's not like we're using real server circa 2001 or whatever. We understand the complexity. Now, one thing I will quickly say is you've got new technologies that are even faster to start up and quicker to watch, like MOQ. And we're working on things like this with Oracle. And it's interesting and it's evolving. And yes, it is kind of the new shiny object, but it's definitely not the standard for streaming today that we've established over 10 or 15 years, right? With
Right.
AKTA and all this stuff that we know is robust and very reliable. So
And that's really crucial. So it's good to explore these things. You guys are looking into that next frontier. But again, if you are doing World Cup, which I have heard likened to not one Super Bowl, but 100 Super Bowls with 100 million people
right.
watching most games. Maybe they didn't show up to Guadalajara last night, but that being said, they definitely showed up on TV. The live event is the thing now. It's the thing that all the big streaming companies are betting on. Live sports, live news when it breaks. You've got to be able to deliver because that's what the audience and the advertisers expect. Now, it's always been let's get it out to the edge. Let's use CDNs and all of that stuff and push it away from the center spot so that local nodes that are going nuts, maybe it's Mexico going crazy, obviously over their opening match win, but and Czechia getting big over there, but not necessarily some other place. And you've got to balance those things out. You have this thing called containerized microservices, which feels just a little bit to me like something I order from HelloFresh and a prepared meal. And I can't wait to dive in on it, except this is actually about delivering programming I want to dive into. So, how does that containerized microservice approach iterate above the traditional CDN, push it out to the edge stuff? And how does it help deal with cost structures and all the rest?
Yeah, good question. So let's talk about that. So, containerized microservices means a lot of different things. So to your example, we are able to analyze in real time during a huge event like the World Cup, that Sprint has an outage in Denver, for example. So we know that if you're pulling that from Orange County, and let's say that your route does come through Denver because the way that telcos work, we've got a route around that. We've got to go to Salt Lake City and then to an origin here, maybe in Dallas. So that intuitiveness and that ability to understand what's happening, log it, right? So that our customers understand what's happening, but ultimately deliver a good experience to you means that we're using a microservice in a sense here to understand how to route that request to you. You are one person. What I've just described is going to happen 700,000 a million times today for some of these matches, right? So containerized microservices means that we've got things like that, an analysis element in the player, but we have edge nodes that can encode and edge nodes that understand for a fast channel, not specific to the World Cup. Again, a fast channel is playing on Roku or Samsung or whatever, and oh, there's a missing segment here. I've got to go fix that, right? So it's intuitive, it's AI, but and not genericizing it, but it's very specific AI designed to look at specific functions, conditions, elements of uh, live, fast channels, even on demand content, and understanding. And again, this is kind of, we talked about this in our last segment, which is um, I'm kind of the boss guy. I'm kind of the manager guy. I've got all these agents coming to me saying, "Sir, I did this. Sir, I did this. Sir, I did this." Okay, I got to check your work. Is that channel okay? Yep, looks okay. Approved. But realizing that in some cases that the agent did 95 or 97% of the work, but there's still some missing, right? And unfortunately, it's not like a high school history class or a college English class. I can't just grade the paper at 98. I have to tell the agent that's unsatisfactory. I need the other 2%. So go fix this thing that I've identified for you, right? Sometimes that has to happen in milliseconds. Sometimes it happens with an on-demand piece of content that isn't as timely. But the importance is that there's someone. I'm sorry, I don't want to humanize this, but there is an element that is analyzing what AI is doing, and we believe that's very important. And we've always said human in the middle, and even before the human in the middle, we're saying that there's a manager and there's agentic AI, and that's there's something to be said about that. It's very efficient, but
Right.
structure is important too.
Well, every orchestra needs a Gustavo Dudamel. I say that as a uh, very sad LA Philharmonic fan who's seen Gustavo go to New York where he can play with the Knicks. But that being said, it's nice to see not general AI, but specific AI,
Right.
which is probably much more powerful and much more useful because it really knows a specific thing.
That's right.
And then a thing over that to make sure all those little individual, highly specialized things play well with each other and do what they say they're going to do.
That's right.
So, this also, though, is a way to deal with some of the cost of managing these systems. Talk about why or how containerized microservices help eliminate the hardware tax, the so called hardware tax that you guys talk about.
Yeah. So for a long time in this industry, and you and I are old salts, David. You've been here, so you can appreciate this. There
I
was,
don't even have pepper in my hair anymore. It's just salt.
and
It's all salt.
I don't have any. So
Yeah.
there you go. Um,
Yeah. Well, yeah, they salted the field, as it were.
but there was a tax, a premium in this business for doing video business, which was in order to create this stream, this content, and put it in the way that you need it to be to reach that audience, you need this $35,000 piece of hardware, this $100,000 piece of hardware, right? Depending on vendor A, vendor B, vendor C. I won't call them out because I've worked for some of them too. But that was table stakes. And we fundamentally as an organization don't believe in that. If we have a station that's that can't send us an SRT feed, right? Because their IT department or their that function is not as advanced. Again, I'll pick on, like Tupelo, Mississippi. We put an appliance in that facility. And that appliance, by the way, is off the shelf hardware. It's commoditized capture card. It's our technology that's running on that, which is really the special sauce. But we're talking 6, 7 orders of magnitude less expensive than what it was 10 years ago. And I think that's really important. Now, it is also very, very important to talk about if you have a hybrid infrastructure like we do, the hardware tax, yes, goes away, but you've got to be really intuitive about what you do where. And what I mean by that is there's a GPU in those pieces of hardware in Hattiesburg and in New York City and everywhere that we have customers. We're doing this really cool thing with AI where we're extracting metadata and identifying segments and doing vector search and pulling speech to text. Guess what? A lot of that's happening on the hardware on premise. And that's
Mhm.
really smart because we're using a GPU to do it for hardware where, the cost is sunk, it's understood, everything is baked in. If I took that signal and just sent it to the cloud and said, okay, AI, go nuts, man, we've all heard about these tokens. I'd spend a lot of tokens doing that, right? And the customer would be like, hey, yeah, I've got all this information, but my bill this month was X. I'm not really happy about that bill because my usage went through the roof, right? So
Right.
the moral of the story is understand your technology, and AI is extremely helpful, but know how to wield that sword because if you're not doing it in the right place, you're not doing it right.
Right. I think it's safe to say that we all know Elvis is not dead. He's just back in his hometown of Tupelo watching live streaming events
That's right.
on the local TV stations because
Probably
he's
you,
still using rabbit ears. So
probably UFC. Yeah.
probably UFC. That's a really good bet. I'm going to give you that one in a walkover. That's a good bet. With this, we should probably wrap this up. I am David Bloom with Next TMT and Next TMT Talks with Matt Smith, the chief evangelist for AKTA, talking about how we deal with the latency crisis in live sports and news events and related stuff that goes live and the challenges that creates in this hot new sector, how cloud DVR and edge computing and containerized miniature services, microservices can help manage the costs and the peaking loads and all those really big challenges folks are facing. With that, we will wrap this up. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, David.